Hi again, this is Anthony Kuzub of, I guess I'm with CBC MTIS. I'm Vice Chair of the Toronto Audio Engineering Society, and to avoid conflicts of interest, I'm speaking with AES members only. I kind of love my job, so it involves a copious amount of audio, and I'd like to keep it. I am joined with Colin from
Lectrosonics Canada.
Tell us what brought you here to the AES event. Why was it important for Lectrosonics to be here at this AES Expo 2019?
I think it was a wonderful opportunity. Firstly, as a pro audio show only, the province and the country, I think, deserves a show that focuses strictly on pro audio, as well as your job fair. Just take it over the top.
Just makes sense.
It does make sense.
Very good,
know.
very good. Well, did you do Infocom? Were you just at Infocom?
No, I was actually, we sponsored the SMT barbecue, the annual barbecue event, which was a pretty key event with a bunch of broadcasters. We're right in the phase of broadcasters having to change frequencies.
Yes,
I felt that was a pretty important place to
have
a burger with them.
This is the hot topic in broadcast now, which is the spectrum auctions. Right.
Yes.
So you're heavily involved with Industry Canada about this stuff?
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about why this is a vital thing for people who use the public spectrum for their private events and for profit. Tell me about that.
It's been a bit of a controversial scenario that public spectrum can be auctioned to the highest bidder. There has been an industry quite aggressively behind this, which is the mobile phone industry.
Okay.
Which we all are responsible for driving that.
Totally. Yeah.
We want more bandwidth. We want it
higher
now.
Speeds.
We want high speeds.
Yeah. We want it all.
So, 5G. Okay. Has not been launched per se yet in Canada, but there's certain groups that broadcast groups that were targeted to buy spectrum because of the propagation of that spectrum.
Okay.
It's ideal 600 to 700 megahertz.
Yeah.
And just to rewind, the 700 megahertz was already auctioned off some time back. So this is the second round.
Okay.
The broadcasters had high expectations, production side of broadcast, that they would be compensated for this time around, and unfortunately that has not been the case.
For TV signal...
For the expenditure of having to rejig their equipment, which...
Antenna changes, transmitter changes, modulator changes, all of this stuff. But doesn't the changes improve the user experience of television?
Eventually, I guess the mobile experience will improve.
So it's
but
more about the mobile
5G has still not been deployed.
Okay.
So there was an auction, and there was an agreement, a tripartite agreement between Mexico, the USA, and Canada, actually, to auction that section of the spectrum off, which is the 600 meg spectrum, but not all of that spectrum necessarily. There were two small chunks, a guard band, they call it, and a duplex gap, which still may have some wireless microphone use in the USA, but they limited power to only 20 milliwatt, which is not necessarily suitable. And you're going to have some very high power carriers on either side of you in that.
The change from frequency modulated to spread spectrum in the wireless microphone industry and the newer modulation schemes and digital modulation schemes have allowed us to do things like pack channels much more tightly together.
Yes.
What type of tools are available to users and consumers to monitor this packing and frequency coordination?
We have a program, for instance, called Wireless Designer. It's a very simple program to use. You can just simply do a scan from the 470 to 608 band, which is pretty much all we're left with. It's still sufficient, relatively, depending on what you're doing. So you can do a scan on that program from 470 to 608 on USB or Ethernet, and it'll scan your receiver channels right across that whole band and automatically select clean frequencies for you.
So
And then you can simply sync your transmitters to those. And that's become much more sophisticated.
Yeah.
There's a lot of math going on there, but it is proven and quite simple to use. So
what modulation scheme does Lectrosonic use for their transmits?
we've just released a new modulation scheme. It's not entirely different to our older digital. It's our fourth generation digital.
Okay.
However, it's 24-bit 48K.
Okay. So the conversion happens in the transmitter now.
Correct.
Everything happens
but it's still compatible with our older digital hybrid transmission.
Okay.
So we still want to pull our older so-called analog guys, with us.
Mm-hmm.
But one point to stress is that there still is intermod to deal with. We don't feel that you're going to be in a situation where you will not have to calculate for intermod, especially if you are running active antennas.
Okay.
Anytime you have an active antenna system, there's
Yeah.
a chance, as you know, for intermod. So
Yeah.
intermod, in my opinion, is still something to contend with, but these programs are much more sophisticated to handle that.
Are you finding that customers are starting to ask for access to APIs to software, or are they relying on strictly just one
There's some
workplace?
industry standard software.
Okay.
Industry standard, meaning, there's a company called IAS, which is,
Yeah.
I'm sure you're familiar with.
Intermod Association. Yeah,
Yes,
I can't remember what it stands for.
And that was written by a guy that honestly is in the trenches.
Yeah.
That literally is traveling from show to show.
He's the guy.
Yeah.
He's Mr. IAS.
And so he wrote that program. Shure has a program called Workbench, of course,
Workbench,
which Sennheiser has their own program.
There's one that amalgamates Sennheiser, Lectrosonics, Shure. It's like an aggregator of all that stuff.
I think IAS is the leveler. It could be Easy RF. There's another program out of Montreal.
There's a bunch of stuff. I can't remember the one. I know. I'll talk to. I think I know who distributes that. I'll figure that.
Yeah,
one
that
out.
would be an interesting.
So every transmitter so every receiver is a spectrum analyzer first. Like it has that capability built into it. Is that a trend in that
Absolutely,
world?
yeah.
Okay.
And an easy way to on location do a very quick setup.
Yeah.
And simply then sync your transmitters to those new receiver frequencies,
Right.
which have taken the RF environment into account. And it's that simple, So the sky's not falling. Yes, we certainly are losing some spectrum.
I guess if they're taking chunks of the sky out, the sky is falling a little bit.
Well, I think the interesting point is the comm guys, the BTR 800s.
Oh yeah.
That were sort of without disrespect to Telex, good products, but it took up a lot of spectrum.
Yes.
And those are sort of being phased out.
Yeah.
So we've seen a move of comms out of the UHF spectrum, actually freeing up some space for your more, how can I say, beach real estate. So the UHF spectrum has become the beach real estate.
Beach real estate.
Which is why the government auctioned it off for the top dollar.
Yeah, well, totally. Well, can I buy spectrum? Can a regular human buy spectrum, or do I have to be a corporation?
No,
with
and
millions of
you work
dollars?
for one.
Well, that's true. Yeah, that's true. That's right. The CBC.
So the auction is actually complete.
Yeah.
The auction is over.
Yeah. Did you bid?
I didn't
Can
bid.
Lectrosonics as a company, this is an industry question, can they say,
That was
hey,
a good question.
Can I buy this and only Lectrosonic? Can they
That's
do
a
that?
great question.
I don't know that. Okay, well.
If you had the big enough checkbook, I guess why not?
I think so, yeah. If you're Google and you make
No, I know
wireless.
Ottawa did try and level the playing field, and they did try and incorporate other sort of smaller companies,
Right.
entities, corporations to be able to bid, like One Mobile and a few others.
Okay.
Telus, I know, bid very aggressively, and so did Rogers.
Of course.
Bell surprisingly pulled out of this auction.
Really?
And I think they've set their sights more on the 3 gig spectrum.
Interesting.
So Rogers have used this more as they feel, because of the propagation and, again, the beach real estate, UHF, and how these things work on your devices, they were pretty aggressive.
I would imagine they would have to be. Well, it's the communications business, right? So,
Yeah.
owning a piece of the sky is kind of cool.
But it's going to take time for the 5G to deploy.
Yeah.
It's not overnight, far from it.
Well, and the politics that are happening with that, when international politics related to technology are above all of us. We're just audio. You know? So with these new now digital transmitters, what does it do to battery life? Like what
is
battery
it
life?
to battery life?
What has changed now that this modulation scheme has changed? Are we seeing longer lasting battery cycles out of products, or
I wouldn't say longer lasting, but there's definitely a trend to rechargeable battery technology, which we use in a product. I won't mention the specific brand, but it is made by a large manufacturer that has been proven to be temperature resistant, and especially for Canadian type use, and efficient. And it's available. I bought 4 of those nickel metal hydride with a charger for $24.
There you go.
And on our packs, we're getting about our IFBs, which running program material too. You know,
you're driving headphones or earpieces
for like 5-6 hours. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it that's a trade-off with full digital.
For sure.
It's certainly.
Well, we just had Kevin from Wardbeck here talk about IP technology. You have spectrum changes, you have output changes, you have modulation changes, you have batteries, you have all these changes that are happening in the industry.
Right.
And then on top of things, they throw in audio over IP. So can you tell a little bit about how the Audio Engineering Society and audio over IP is also influencing your business decisions?
No, it's absolutely. I think every manufacturer is addressing that in some manner. Some are more aggressive with Dante, depending on which market. The AV market has pretty much endorsed that in certain applications.
Absolutely.
In others, we've seen a trend towards the demand for AES 67, obviously, or the 2110, 30.
Absolutely.
Environment. I think as a manufacturer, and I know we had a good lunch and conversation about that. Is we on as speaking for Lectrosonics, we tend to be wait for the dust to settle. Type company. We can't afford to put all our eggs in one basket.
This is true.
So we tend to be what we call stayers instead of pioneers.
There you go.
So we are watching that. We do have product now shipping with Dante.
Yep.
But we also have a product variation of that, which will ship with AES 3 AES CPU.
Okay, there you go. There's still demand for that. There is still demand for those types of things.
There are people that have said they won't use Dante.
Yeah, it's very interesting. I've also noticed a trend of condensing. Like higher density receivers, higher density transceivers. Like, is it people are just sick and tired of lifting road cases, or
it's all about channel count and transport. And I joked with somebody today that I think my booth could be the size of this chair one day.
Exactly. Yeah.
We just have a little 4-channel receiver, which is half rack or 8 channels, 1 rack space, full digital, 24-bit, 48K with Dante and everything else, the scanning.
Yeah.
So it's transportability, I think, in terms of fly packs. People are traveling, and as you know, with live audio, they wanted immediate streaming and.
Lectrosonics is definitely known as a brand for ENG field reporting for cameras. It's the lightweight, it's the rugged type of stuff.
The bag guys is a big part of our market.
The bag guys, I guess so. What's changed in the bag guys world?
Again, products coming out with that IP. IP options, like Sound Devices come out with Scorpio, and that has full Dante capability, at 32 type.
Crazy.
It is. How many people are going to use that full channel count?
Well, I got to say, with immersive sound, like one mono microphone really sounds terrible in Dolby Atmos.
Right.
So, you might as well record a couple other little things. And I guess if you want to be tethered or untethered, you have to have that recorder going someplace.
It's more the recorders that are driving a Kantar in certain manufacturers.
Yeah, that's right. I saw that.
But then others who just haven't got on that bandwagon yet,
Well, they will. I think until the wireless of like wireless transmission of Dante AES 67.
Okay.
You know, like until that happens, until we can eliminate the wire in that. But that's just another thing we have to frequency coordinate. So that's a very big trend change. So
Sure.
what about the Audio Engineering Society and Toronto keeps you coming back to being involved in these events?
I have a real soft spot for the AES. I mean, I was many years ago on the AES committee.
Okay.
And then family life.
Who was the
kids.
chair? Who was the chair?
Chair in those days, I'm trying to remember. There were various chairs. Peter Cook comes to mind.
Okay.
Do you remember Peter? I think he's with CBC.
I think he's with Humber College now.
Yes, okay.
So he's out in Humber College now. So
And Dan, of course.
Dan, yeah,
Dan Marquette was still...
it's classic.
And Earl, again, even,
of course, yeah.
even back in those
Yeah,
days.
it's very
I'm
good.
trying to remember who the chair was. Doesn't come to mind. There were a bunch of different guys. I don't know what... And again, I think it's just the same dedication.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, we do need an umbrella organization that is apolitical and
Yes.
drives the true needs of the audio.
That's very interesting.
Audio
So
industry.
then that's a huge observation that the audio industry is very political.
It can be.
It can be.
Certainly, as we've seen with these IP standards.
Absolutely. Well, and like even me being here, talking on behalf of the CBC and just sitting down and talking to
Sure.
AES members is a conflict of interest for me.
Right.
So I have to be very careful about that. So
Yeah.
so even that type of thing is very political, is super political. But that's very interesting. That is very, very interesting.
So I think the development is so positive and very, very exciting.
If
you
you
know,
could-
that this show now is taking a step up. And,
Good. That's very
and
good.
I think the province and Canada needs a show of this caliber.
Well, some of the comments I had were, like MIAC is no longer a show, and a lot of the, I'm going to call them mega distributors of Canada Pro Audio are starting to do their own. I'm not going to call them biased trade shows
Sure.
because they obviously know what they're doing. It's,
Companies are doing their own shows too.
it's branded. Is it that we don't have the opportunity to reach out to members and share information with them? Is that why a lot
in terms of drawing them to the shows?
Yeah,
you
in
mean?
terms of drawing them to shows.
I think it's up to each manufacturer to draw out as many people as they can.
Right.
Because to show in a apolitical, neutral
Yeah.
venue, I think is to everyone's advantage. In that respect, and seminars I think are necessary.
Yeah.
And all the other educational benefits.
Having seminars is super time consuming. Like
Sure.
but it's to benefit the. Not necessarily the trade show side of things, but to benefit the dissemination of information, which is super important.
It's all good.
Yeah. Well, we are going to go to the trade show floor. Thank you for coming,
Thank
Colin.
you for
this is super
for
fun.
having me.
I don't get paid to do this. They're not paying me to do this, but I enjoyed every second of this.
Thank you
This is
very
great.
much.
Thank you so very much, sir.